Hello. Hello and welcome back. Welcome back to Misfit. Start living and thriving now. I am Dr. Natalie Force and I'm your host, hostess, whatever you want to call it. And today I want to pick up something that has always been subliminal in my messaging and that is very, very important to understand. So today is going to be intense. You ready? Good. So, as you know, this show is called Misfit. And in the previous shows, we've had guests who explained various ways in which they were misfits. I've had a couple of shows in which I explained why I believe I am a misfit. It is something that is dear to my heart. Why is it so dear to my heart? Well, it's pretty simple, really. I want to be myself. I deserve to be myself. And I am here to be myself. I'm not here to be anybody else. I'm not here to be a copy of someone else. Neither are you. Since neither are you, let's talk about what happens and how we get to all of a sudden wake up one morning or become aware one afternoon that somehow this is not our life. And we've talked about existing versus living and all that that encompasses. So let's focus today on what I call revolutionize. If we're here to be ourselves, if you're here to be yourself, and when you begin to realize that the world needs you, your authentic you, then you are taking the first step to reconnecting with yourself. Because you deserve to be you and to live your life, and everybody else around you deserves to get that same from you, your true authentic self. However, the world we live in is made up of lots and lots of stories, lots of personas. Which persona do I put on today? It's like when you change your clothes, right? It's like when you're home in your jammies or your sweatpants, you're that person, and then when you dress up, you're another person. Well, those are personas. That's a persona you put on like clothes. What is your personality? Who are you really? Who are you underneath the sweatpants, the jammies, and the gala dress? That's the important question. And in the world we live in, that is often hard to distinguish. And learning how to distinguish that, it's a whole different ballgame. That's another story all in itself. That's another show in itself. But we'll talk about that too. Reconnecting with yourself, rediscovering yourself, re-entering the amazing being that you are. That is what I call the revolution. And I know a lot of people hear the word revolution and they're thinking blood, sweat, tears, armies, weapons, and all of that. And that's okay. That's okay if you want to go that route. And to some of us, that is actually what is going to happen, right? Not necessarily with the weapons and the blood, but with some of us, our journey back to ourselves is like a battle. Some people call it, for example, a midlife crisis. And that midlife crisis, funny enough, can happen at any point in time in your lives. Because do we really know when we are at midlife? And how come some people have their midlife crisis at age 20 and others at age 60? So, but officially, the midlife crisis. And maybe you have 2 or 3, and that's okay. A revolution, always with the prefix re, right? So reconnecting, rediscovering, re-entering, revolution. It all starts with a step. I always say freedom is just one step away. So when you're thinking about your life, what is the one step that you can take to rediscover yourself, to reconnect with yourself. And please know that is different for everybody. Yes, there are many self-help books out there. I've written a number of them. I mean, I've got my book right there, right? Revolutionize, okay? I also, of course, have Be You. It's all connected. Got many more books. I got many more programs. And all the programs are focused on helping you because every single one is an individual. There are some broad strokes we can have, but in the end, that one step that is your first step may be very, very different for everybody listening right now. My first step to reconnecting was probably very different from yours. And yet there are usually similarities. So in my instance, you know, bad marriage, waking up one morning thinking, I can't move, this is not working for me anymore. I'm sure many of you have discovered that. And yet, what do we do right after that? That's like a bing alarm clock going off, right? That's the idea of, well, become aware something's happening here. Okay, great. That's what we want. But what do you do after that? That is where you revolutionize. Some of us, some of you, maybe that's you, you're going to immediately pack your stuff and move someplace else, like upheaval, big thing. And that's okay if that fits you. Sometimes we do that just to get away because we need to run away for a moment or 2 or 3 moments. And that step helps us figure out who we are, reconnect with ourselves, and then we may come back to the same place we just left. We just have a different connection to ourselves. Okay, so that's cool. It's different for everybody. For some of us, that revolution may not involve blood, sweat, tears, huge upheaval. And that's usually what I recommend. I mean, sometimes you got to be drastic. Sometimes you have to have that revolution. But in general, because we live in a certain environment, we live in the world that we live in with certain conditions and parameters that all of us, to some degree, need to adhere to, such as paying bills, driving a certain way, whatever the rules of the place are that we live in. And by rules, I mean legal rules that we have agreed to by living in that place. I'm not talking about how you treat your neighbors or how you talk to one another, even though there are some social parameters there. But a revolution can be a teeny tiny thing. A revolution can be the way that you end up talking to yourself in the morning. A revolution can be smiling at somebody in the grocery store that you've never smiled at. A revolution can be taking a walk, which you haven't done in years. A revolution can be not turning on the TV when you come home. So the breadth of revolution, the variety of the first step to freedom is individual. It depends on you, what fits you. Now, clearly, I can help you with that. And yet, the first step has to come from you. It starts with a certain awareness, that inner, what's going on, right? And then, what are you comfortable with doing? Because when we're talking about a revolution, we're talking about the hidden power of patterns. We're talking about changing patterns that you have lived with for a while. And if you don't remember me talking about patterns at a deeper level, just go back into the archives, right? So it's all there. The patterns, or some people like to call it routines. I like to call it patterns because I'm a historian, right? So I look at patterns of human behavior. So if you look at your patterns, what is an easy one that'll get you moving in the right direction? It might be that when you wake up in the morning, you smile at yourself in the mirror first thing. And it'll take a while. The first time you do it, it's really awkward, right? It might be not making a coffee first thing in the morning and having a tea instead. When you're thinking about the first step to your freedom, to you reconnecting with yourself, it's pretty much like changing your diet or changing your approach to fitness. You'll take one small step. So maybe one thing that I used to do is in the mornings, after that marriage turned out not being so great, I wanted to reconnect with myself in one way or another. And I connected mind, body, and soul. So I put out my yoga mat. And some mornings I would just do the tree posture. Another morning I would do a couple of yoga exercises. Another morning I would just sit crisscross applesauce on the yoga mat with a homemade cafe latte. But I created a space for me to have 15 to 30 minutes to myself. And every morning it differed a little bit. But I started the routine in making time for myself. And after a while, every morning I would actually do 20, 30 minutes of yoga. And my body, mind, and soul are connected, started claiming it. So that even though I made myself the coffee or whatever I was drinking that morning, my body didn't like it until I had done some yoga. So that step, the reason why I'm giving you that long story is just putting down the yoga mat for me was a revolutionary step at home. Nobody saw it. A revolution doesn't have to be in everybody's face. Actually, it usually isn't. Maybe I should call it a grassroots revolution because it has to start here within you. So what is the first step for you to reconnect with yourself, to revolutionize so that you can take one step at a time to freedom? And freedom here means you being you living your life your way. Yes, within certain parameters, but you re-embracing your true personality. And that personality not changing or shifting into different personas depending on where you're at. What is that first step for you? What is that revolutionary first step? Again, it can be a smile. It can be you packing your bags and leaving for a month to spend someplace different. There is a variety and there's a breadth. We have to figure out what works best for you. And then you know that one step after the other. And will you fall off the wagon? Absolutely, yes. Any psychologist will tell you that it takes at least 3 months to change a habit. And we're talking about habits, we're talking about patterns, we're talking about you still being in the environment where everybody else is still doing their same thing. Now, when you take that first step, when you begin to revolutionize your life, your way, remember that it is grassroots. Yes, you may need 1 or 2 people to run this by. You may, I would recommend, need an outside mentor. But even if you don't, you are only accountable to yourself. Once you start telling others that this is what I'm going to do and you're going to see, have you ever noticed? It's like New Year's resolutions. All you're doing is you're going to end up feeling bad because you're not accomplishing it as quickly as you thought, and everybody keeps asking you about it, and then it becomes almost a burden. Avoid that. There's no need for that. Grassroots revolution. One step at a time, your pace, your step. Either smile, the way you talk to yourself, the coffee you have in the morning, whatever that revolutionary step might be. It's your step. And it will begin slowly but surely to have a ripple effect. And that's what we want, right? Because body, mind, and soul is connected. So You start with a conscious step. I'm going to do this. And in the initial stages, yes, you're going to have to force yourself to smile at yourself in the mirror or whatever it may be. Okay? And we can talk more about what steps I recommend. Again, it's individualized. But it's grassroots, and you're just going to do it. And the ripple effect will then mean you're going to want to take the next step. Next step might be bigger, might be smaller. It's the next step that works for you. And slowly but surely, the people around you will notice. Now, the people around you may not embrace revolutions or changes. So they'll just start noticing. If you do it slowly, they'll be like, oh, kind of interesting. Whenever you embark on a revolution, however big or small, you will get to see, how do I phrase this? You will get to see who your true friends and family and tribe are, and who is meant to remain with you. Some people will leave. You will not want to be around some people while you're on your path back to yourself, your path to freedom. And that's great, because always remember, this is not me saying, this is an old Indian philosopher, I believe, that some people are meant to stay with you for a long time and some stay with you for a short time. The way I interpret it is that we all teach and learn from each other, and once that lesson is done, it's done. And we can be grateful for it. So on that path to your freedom, there will be some people who will not like it. And that's okay. There will be some people who will not like it right now, but they'll be back later. And that's okay. It's your revolution. It's you reconnecting with yourself, no one else. So please keep in mind that a revolution is really, really important. Because we're talking about your life. We're talking about your freedom. We're talking about you. And the amazing being you are. You deserve to be you. Forget about personas. Just be you. In all ways, shapes, and forms, because you deserve it and the world needs it. So let's take that one step to freedom. Let's create a grassroots revolution, however big or small. That is what I'm talking about when I'm talking about revolutionize your life, your way, nobody else's. I hope that makes sense to you all. I wanted to go deep into that because a lot of people get thrown off when I say revolution, but it's really very revolutionary when you are truly and entirely yourself, without regrets, without apologies, without personas. It's extremely powerful and extremely impactful. So go out there, revolutionize your way, and be yourself. And I'll see you on the next show.